Just bumping along at the bottom of a very deep hole, I think, is the best way to characterize it. We are adding jobs every month. We are in no way are we in a recession, but we are also not adding enough jobs to dig out of the hole that was caused by the Great Recession.
Yeah.
You know, 5 years ago, we basically fell off a cliff, and we've made very little progress towards digging out of that.
Yeah, bumping along at the bottom of a hole is not a great place to be in. It's important to keep it in perspective, too, because oftentimes we look at the Friday jobs numbers in terms of expectations, and if, whoa, it beat these low expectations, then we're excited. But we're still really far down. So you point to demand, that demand for workers is lacking. What substantiates that?
What we see is elevated unemployment relative to before the recession started across the board. So if you look at people with any level of education, you see higher unemployment than they had in 2007. Any occupation, higher unemployment than in 2007. Same goes by gender, race, ethnicity, sort of any way you look at the numbers. Some groups have lower unemployment rates than others, but everyone has higher unemployment than they had before the recession began. And that is the signature of just across the board weakened demand for work to be done. Employers just aren't seeing demand for their goods and services pick up fast enough for them to have to bring that factory back online, put more people out on the floor.
Then what is the solution to boost demand? Is it stronger economic growth? Is it higher wages for workers like those protesting at Walmart today and at fast food restaurants last week who want more money and then they can go out and buy stuff? You know, what really will do it?
Higher wages right now would contribute to a faster growing economy. Especially there's the higher wage growth that the fast food restaurant workers who are protesting for $15 minimum wage. An increase in the minimum wage would get more money in the hands of low and moderate income people. Those are the folks who are the most likely to spend it. So at a time like this, when the economy is depressed, you get more money in the hands of people who are likely to spend it. That boosts the economy, will generate some jobs, make us grow faster. So that is one place to start. And then the other thing that the sort of key lever policymakers can pull to stimulate demand at a time like this, when we have persistent high unemployment and interest rates are near zero, so they can't really reduce interest rates to stimulate the economy. The key lever they have to pull in a situation like this is fiscal stimulus. We need to get out there, the government actually being aggressively spending on things like infrastructure, on fiscal relief to states and localities. Washington is taking an entirely different approach. In fact, it's more trying to keep them from going in the opposite direction. Washington is fighting austerity, but the economics say what we need is fiscal expansion.
Before we go, just to push back on that a little bit, what makes you think that a company like, let's take automakers, because they're having a hard time keeping up with demand because they don't have the capacity that they had prior to the recession. What makes you think that companies like that would invest if they had a sense that this demand was temporary because it was fueled by some kind of government stimulus?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the idea of the stimulus is we don't want to have a permanent trillion-dollar government stimulus going on. It would be temporary until the private sector takes over. We want to have an economy that's largely fueled by the private sector. But at a time like this, what we see is no one is spending. Businesses aren't investing, people aren't spending, so we're stuck in this mire of really weak economic activity. The government comes in precisely at a time like this is when we want the government to step in and spend money. Not necessarily when the economy is booming, when the private sector is going really well. That's not when we want the government to step in.